Welcome to the latest episode of Learning with Success, the show for parents of school age children, sponsored by Success Tutoring Online. Today we have not one, but two guests. Both are college professors that mainly teach English and writing to incoming freshmen. Okay, so Christina Kennedy graduated cum laude with a BA in Literature and Writing Studies and has a Master of Arts in English with an emphasis in composition and pedagogy, which is another word for teaching. She has written a number of publications, including a book entitled Essentials of Modern Composition with Kendall Hunt Publishing.
Hello.
Also joining us is Joseph Hernandez. He has a BA in Creative Writing and a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing Fiction. He also has written a number of publications, some of which have been published in the Los Angeles Review and in the Offing, a channel of the LA Review of Books. Additionally, Christina and Joseph both also teach English and writing to students on a one-to-one basis as tutors for Success Tutoring Online. So welcome, Christina, and welcome, Joseph.
Hi, yeah,
Hi,
good to
thank
be
you.
here. Thank you.
Okay, good. So now let me ask this question to both of you, and maybe I'll start off with maybe Christina answering, and then Joseph. So the question I want to ask is, okay, as college professors teaching English and writing to incoming college freshmen, what do you see as some of the challenges that college students face when trying to develop their writing skills? Christina?
There tends to be, and I worry that Joseph might just end up being like, yeah, what she said, because
We'll see.
I find
Totally fine.
that time and time again, it's just the basic fundamentals of writing and just essay writing in general is what students struggle with. Spelling, punctuation, and grammar, or I usually shorten it to SPAG. That's something that I see as a regular issue as well. But like things just like constructing a proper thesis statement, placing it in the right spot in the paper itself, knowing how to write an effective introductory paragraph, all of those fundamentals that we hope they have at least some knowledge of, where they can meet the average level with us by the time they come into college 101 writing. That's usually what I see. It's like they know of the ideas, but like actually implementing it into their paper is something entirely different. So I don't know.
Okay.
Joseph, what do you think?
Okay, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, of course.
How do you want? Would you like to add anything more to that, Joseph?
I definitely agree with that completely. Yeah, the fundamentals are one of the bigger challenges for a lot of students, especially today in the digital age, where a lot of people rely either on kind of shorthand messaging when they're texting or something like that, or sometimes when you're using word processing programs like Microsoft Word and stuff, sometimes it'll auto correct the word for you. So a lot of people don't really remember or retain all those skills. But also, I would say one challenge that I do see a lot as well is kind of an interest in writing. A lot of students don't really have that. And so I try to kind of make writing assignments a little relatable for the students so that they're at least engaged with what they're writing about. Because I think a lot of the times you'll see students that of all grade levels who just don't like writing. And so that's a definite challenge and barrier for that.
Now, also, you mentioned, in this digital age, where basically everything is digital and streamed, and and I mean, we're doing an actual online podcast here. But in this day and age, um, would you say that the fact that a lot of times people don't read as much, or especially students don't read as much, would you say that is a contributing factor to the interest in learning how to write? Joseph?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think Christina would probably also agree, but I do always say that writing and reading go hand in hand. If you want to become a better writer, you can practice writing, but you should also be reading to see how other people are doing it. And so, yeah, if students do not like to read, I think that also really adds to their desire to learn to write as well. And if they don't read a lot or don't read well, yeah, it'll definitely contribute.
Okay, very good. And Christina, would you like to say anything more to that?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's one of those things and I get asked that question often by my students who are eager to become better writers. They'll straight up ask me, "How do I become a better writer?" And I'll ask, what are your reading routines outside of school?" "I don't read." I'm like, "Okay, we
Hmm.
can start with that, and then
Yeah.
see if that helps, and go from there." Yeah, it's very much they very much go hand in hand. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, if I'm ever talking to a student about writing, I let them know that if they read, they're exposed to a lot of different ways of expressing themselves and see how different authors, you know, handled different things. So that's actually, yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, okay. So now let me ask you this. I'll ask each of you, and this time maybe I'll ask Joseph first, and then Christina. Now, I learned many years ago that in its simplicity, writing is really just a form of communication. If you break it down into that simplicity, that is really just a form of writing. Now, would you agree?
Definitely, yeah. That's actually something that I do often emphasize to my classes, that writing is a form of communication, and if you think of it that way, sometimes it can make it a little bit easier to write better, or to have some interest in writing if you are trying to convey a certain maybe emotion or get a certain point across. And I do also tell my students, of course, writing in school is something that you have to do. Obviously there's a reason that you're learning it, because it's very important, but I try to make it a little relatable for them and say stuff like, you can use it to apply to jobs. Like, having good writing skills means you're likely to be a better communicator. And if you're a better communicator, regardless of kind of what profession you want to be in, I think that's beneficial to everyone. So definitely, yeah, I definitely emphasize that all the time.
Very good, very good. Christina, would you like to say anything on that?
Yeah, to piggyback on the job hunting, even just with creating an effective cover letter, if
Hmm.
you're applying for jobs in IT, you still like there are many positions out there that still require cover letters. So you have to be a strong communicator and use your words, even though maybe you're a computers person, you know. But in addition to that, what I was going to say is, yeah, it is very much like a just any other form of communication. I also think it's a strong form of self-expression, just like with public speaking, theater, music,
Hmm.
art. It's just another art form, but it's the written word, and it's essential for the human experience, like most art anyway,
Hmm.
and it's used to share ideas, empower, persuade, express love. And so it goes so much farther beyond a classroom setting or a work setting where it's going to help you out when you are, running a business or something. It helps advance you through all areas of your life.
Exactly. Very good, very good. So taking up on that, what you said, now there is an old saying that the pen is mightier than the sword. Now, what does that mean exactly, and how does that fit into the idea of how writing is used today? Christina?
So what that always has meant to me is that words have power, and sometimes it's more powerful than we may think, right? But consider this too: books. It's so obvious to us that books have power, especially. I mean, I would like to say from decades past we can examine this, but this is even a current issue where books are getting banned out of fear of the power or the sway that they may have on people. And it's oftentimes a story of fiction. So it doesn't even need to be this like nonfiction manifesto of some kind that will move people to change. But even fiction pushes us to move or moves us to um, greater heights and greater planes of thinking and change and progression. So I think that just is something that is never going to die.
Okay, very good. And Joseph, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with what Christina said there, and I like that you're bringing this quote up, this famous quote, because it is something to really think about, right? I usually talk about it in terms of like rhetoric, which the definition of that would be, the way that I teach the word rhetoric is how you go about making an argument about something, or how you go about saying something, I guess you could say. So, if I told all of my students to write a paper about, their happiest memory or something like that, there's a lot of different ways you could approach that assignment. You could write maybe more of a funny story, or, a very heartfelt story. And, depending on the words that you use, the descriptions you use, things like that, you could evoke different emotions. And so, yeah, definitely, I think that goes in line with that quote, but also a lot of everything that Christina was saying as well.
Okay, very good. So now, what exactly does it mean to develop one's writing skills, and why would you say that it is important to do that? Now, we've talked about a couple things, like such as with resumes, but how else, other than resumes or cover letters, how else would you say that developing one's writing skills is important? Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, I think Christina touched on this a little bit earlier. Definitely the fundamentals are a great place to start, learning those, this is a real tricky one for a lot of people at various stages of their writing careers, but comma usage, stuff like that, all of those basic grammar fundamentals are very important, and just kind of getting those down are great. But also just, word choice, having a big vocabulary is also really nice, kind of, maybe looking up a word of the day kind of thing, and learning, teaching yourself new words. I think I've heard it said that in order to really retain a new word that you learn, you have to kind of try to apply it in several different ways, like maybe come up with a few different sentences using that word on your own. And just doing that can really help you remember those words. Because I think we probably all have words that we forget the meaning of it, and then we look it up and we're like, oh, okay, that's what it means. And then, I don't know, a month or two later, we hear that word again and we're like, wait, I forgot what that means. What does that mean again? So yeah, I mean, word choice is always great to continue to develop as well.
Okay, very good. Christina.
So I took notes on these questions you were going to ask, I'll be honest.
Okay, sure, good.
Much of what Joseph's saying, I'm like, dang it, that's what I was going to say.
Read your mind.
Which is good. That means, hey, we're on the same page. So that's good. But in short, my answer for what does it mean to develop one's writing skills would be just to enhance the skills as needed to improve your writing. Everybody's writing skills and abilities, nobody's at the exact same level. It's very like rare, at least, to find the students that they all like. I've never had it anyway, and I think Joseph can attest to this too. Coming into English 101, I've never had every single student in my class at the same exact level. Like they're all getting C's or B's,
especially
or A's
nowadays, right? With the varying, yeah.
Yeah, it's so there's such a spectrum of grading and such. So for me, when it's developing their writing skills, it just means however much that means for that person to become better. And the thing about becoming a better writer is that there's always room for improvement. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as a perfect writer or perfect writing. It's complete. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. There was an old adage about a master pianist that would continue to practice every day. He was like this maestro, and continued to practice and the basics. And he was asked, why? I mean, you are the maestro, and you are well known now. Why do you continue to practice every day? And his answer was, well, I'm actually starting to get good now.
Yeah.
So you can always get better. So all right, now Joseph, you actually started to touch on this. So let me ask you this here now. How exactly do the basics of grammar, sentence structure, and all of those other tools that one usually learns in English, how do these fit into writing skill development? And why does one need to really know these things in today's world? Okay.
Sure.
Joseph, yeah, go ahead and you start.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, why should we learn these? Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of drawing a blank on this one. I might need a second to think of the answer.
Tap in?
Sure, Christina, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, basics of grammar, sentence structure. Okay, why do we need to know these things?
Yes.
It's an essential element to your writing. Because it ensures that the message in written form is clear. Because you need to know it, because even including a punctuation mark where it's not supposed to be, or not including one when you need one, can completely transform the meaning of your sentence. Even not including a hyphen with a compound adjective, that can make a difference in what you're saying. And I've seen it in papers time and time again. And I've provided examples to my students where I'll write something on the board without punctuation. And I'll say, okay, how are you reading this sentence? Okay, this is how I mean to add punctuation here. But if I add another comma here, it changes what's being said completely, right? And it does. So it really genuinely can make all the difference in your writing and your message. So it is critical to know how to use all of that effectively and appropriately.
It's like learning how to use all the tools.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
All right, Joseph, would you like to add anything further?
Yeah, I mean, as Christina was explaining that, I did actually think that I was going to say like a toolbox. Like it is kind of like gaining new tools for your toolbox, and understanding the fundamentals of it, but also being able to kind of craft a sentence that is unique or interesting or motivational or easy to understand, or all those things, right? And again, depending on the different medium that you're writing in or writing for, you might need a different type of writing, right? There's more technical writing, there's more creative writing, there's more maybe motivational writing. So knowing how and when to use different punctuation or grammar or words can absolutely help a lot, and allow you to become a better writer in a lot of different ways, not just a better story writer, but also a better letter writer, or whatever the case. Yeah.
Right. Good. Well, this kind of goes right into my next question, which I wanted to ask, which is now, looking at all of these different tools, and some people using them well, some people not, some people knowing them, others not. Now, what might be some good analogies that one could use to illustrate the difference between elementary or basic writing skills versus higher level, more well-developed writing skills? So, Christina.
I used a very book nerdy kind of analogy because it was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, well, some people will get this and some people won't. So I'll provide context in case for those who won't.
Okay.
So I compared it to reading The Hobbit versus reading the Silmarillion. So The Hobbit they're both by Tolkien, for the record. And The Hobbit is actually often read in upper elementary school classes as part of just the required reading. And so the story itself, the reading itself, is a little easier. It's one storyline to follow, versus the Silmarillion is often read out of love and devotion to Tolkien, but painfully so, because it reads like a textbook and feels very dry, and it has myths and stories that jump all over the place. It's almost like a creation story at some point. And so it's very heavy and detailed, and it's not for fans of just the film adaptation, but true Tolkien fans. So that the elementary level is like The Hobbit, and then the Silmarillion is way more advanced. And to get there, you have to take that journey. Yeah, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, well, nerd alert.
No problem.
That's
Okay,
good.
Joseph, would you like to say anything on that?
Well, I think that was a great example, definitely. And I think I like to, when I'm teaching writing and telling my students that, to write about a certain topic or a certain reading or something like that, I do like to kind of emphasize to them, like, okay, if I told everyone in the class to all write a story about, I don't know, a haunted house or something like that, and I had 25 students, that would be 25 very different stories. And again, depending on as I keep kind of emphasizing, the words that they use or the emotions that they're trying to evoke, some of those stories could be stronger than others, or more interesting, or maybe more scary than others, depending on the focus and the attention to the language and the basics like that. So, you know, sometimes people will write off certain stories because they are too, kind of, maybe like Christina mentioned with The Hobbit, for example, maybe they're too basic or they're too elementary. But I'd say that there's always value in stuff like that, even if it is simple. Just because it's simple, that doesn't mean really anything. You can still get a lot of good value out of reading or writing something that is what people would consider to be simple, as long as it's strong, well written, good word choice, all of those.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
Well,
Hemingway.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Oh,
Christina.
sorry. Hemingway and Steinbeck are perfect examples of, it's not the most like flowy writing, and it's actually pretty simple, brief sentences, and they don't even have the most expansive vocabulary that's implemented in their writing, but they're classics. They're classic authors. Everybody knows their names. Most of us can name, at least one of their works. It's because the writing's good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now something that Joseph was saying about possibly asking somebody to write about I think you said like a haunted house, which reminded me of I had heard somebody else one time explain that it's almost like the difference of sitting around a campfire and you have somebody that actually gives a very simple story of well, we went we went on a hike and we thought we heard a bear and we started running and that was it. I mean, like very simple, very, very basic, right? Whereas somebody else will really develop the story. They put in the inflection of their voice. They put in the scenery. They paint the whole environment, and so somebody who's actually a really good storyteller, they'll actually lean in close and lower their voice, and everybody leans in to kind of hear, and so it's like that kind of a thing, so that somebody so there's the difference between the two different types of stories. Somebody who's like really a well-developed storyteller. Well, if you do that in writing, that's basically you're creating that same effect. Would you both agree that would be the case?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a great example. I like that.
Okay, good. So now let me ask you this, based on this. So if somebody wanted to create an impact on society or change people's views on things in general, so whether to emphasize green energy or adopt green technology, or to raise the general awareness of what we can all do to lessen poverty and homelessness, or any other type of social cause. Now, if somebody wanted to really create an impact in society, or create a change, or change people's views, what would you suggest that person do? Christina?
I mean, when I initially was thinking about this question, the first thing I thought of was, well, what major would that revolve around? And so, I mean, there's so many different avenues you can take, academically at least, that would help get you to a point where you can start promoting change for a social cause, right? But like I'm thinking, okay, public speaking or communications, English, business, economics, political science. But I mean, there's so many of them. But I think what's most important with this is that when you think about promoting change, it doesn't necessarily need to exist solely on like a business or like organization type level, but it's often a matter of like those who so networking and being able to convey your message and your goals with people who will either who already share the same goals as you, or who will likely band together with you to encourage this change. So getting people to work with you is key. So making sure that you have the tools to effectively communicate and persuade is essential.
Right. Very good. Okay, good. Joseph, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, definitely. I really like Christina's answer, and I would also say, I mean, I kind of keep emphasizing this as I always do, but word choice, kind of learn words, rhetoric, kind of like how do you want to motivate people? What kind of words would you use that would inspire people or motivate people? But also, I would say, research, educating yourself on these matters, just so that you have the tools to prove your point and show people why this is something that needs to change. Definitely doing the research, finding out information about whatever topic you are trying to speak about, and just being prepared. And I think educating yourself in that regard will go a long way.
Good, good.
Yeah.
And Christina touched on this also, just basically just your, again, writing skill and being persuasive,
Hmm.
whether it's in the forum of public speaking, or actually in a book, or some other way of communicating. But again, as we talked, as we said earlier, I mean, writing is basically a communication, so that could be a very essential way to kind of get the message across,
Hmm.
so that people can actually, start to see this change or view or whatever. So okay, very good, very good. Now, so now there are, at this point right now, so we are in the middle of April, so there are only a few more weeks left in this current school year. What would you suggest students do over the summer to work on their writing skills and to prepare themselves for the next school year, or for college if a student will be graduating soon? Joseph?
All right. Well, probably the easy answer. So I guess it's nice that I get to go first. Read and write. Definitely. I know that sounds obvious, but find something that you enjoy. Find a book that you like. If you really don't like reading, if you really don't want to read novels, I guess that's understandable. But you should still find some that you like. But even something like a graphic novel or comic books or any other form of reading that you can do, and engage with the story as you're reading it. Think about it. Okay, why did the author choose to have this happen, or what does this word mean? Definitely don't be afraid to look up words, things like that. And then, of course, write some stories yourself. Write about something that interests you, even just something as simple as starting a journal. Those sound like really obvious answers, but you'd be surprised if you tried something like that and found it was interesting to you. That
Mhm.
could go a long way, and that helps a lot.
Very good, very good. Christina?
He touched on pretty much everything I was going to say. So I think the only thing that I also was going to suggest was vocabulary building apps, because they, I mean, those do end up feeling kind of like homework though. So that's the frustrating part with um, like trying to encourage people to download vocabulary building apps, because they're like, well, I don't want to like sit here with flashcards over my summer break, right?
Hmm.
So I would also suggest journaling, but actually try implementing proper spelling, punctuation, and grammar as you're working through it. And you could even tap into like trying to create some creative short stories or poetry. When it comes to reading, yeah, I know a lot of people don't read for entertainment or leisurely reading, as I call it, because of one reason or another. Most people say they
Hmm.
don't like reading. I think
Hmm.
it's either one of two things. It's either they were discouraged when they were younger because they weren't strong readers, and so they just, do the bare minimum just to get by and then never pick up a book again after high school, or they just have it's a lack of concentration. So if it's the lack of concentration, you could always pick up a book of, or an anthology of short stories. So it's not really, you have to sit and concentrate for hours at a time. A short story might take you only 15-20 minutes to read. So you don't have to commit to such a long period
Hmm.
of concentration. With reading for the entertainment and people discouraging you when you're younger, there's no one that's going to be discouraging you as you're reading for entertainment. So it's all at your own pace, and it's really just at that point a matter of finding something compelling enough to keep your attention. So usually what I recommend in that regard is to ask bookstore employees for recommendations. Going in and just talking to somebody that works at a bookstore. I used to work at Half Off Books in Fullerton, and so many people would come in and just ask for recommendations. And my first question would be, okay, well, what are you interested in? What type of genre interests you? What are your hobbies? So then I could help figure out, okay, well, this, like, you know, if someone's telling me that they really like dragons, I'm not going to take them over to like a sports section of the of the bookstore, right? So it's really a matter of just finding what they will deem interesting, and then if they're like, I want something shorter or longer, or like short stories or poems instead, we can just slowly narrow our focus until we find them something that they'll likely be able to stick with and enjoy.
Very good.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of, I mean, personally, I, you know, when I was very young, didn't, of course, as a young kid and early elementary, I didn't do a lot of reading. But then around probably the fourth grade, I happened to actually find a book that happened to be, luckily, it was right at my current correct level of reading skill, and it was also an exciting book. It was great, and it really introduced me to the love of reading. And what I almost feel disappointed with a lot of that. I see that a lot of students, that they say they don't like to read, because some of the most enjoyable times have been finding a book that you can just get lost in and immersed in, and you basically are experiencing this whole world that is basically drawn by the artist who is the author. You know, one of my all-time favorite books is the book Dune by Frank Herbert. And you know, I mean, that is a challenging book, actually. If you've never read this book, it's a bit challenging because it has its own glossary and vocabulary and terminology, you know. So you have to actually look at all this, and it involves, you know, space travel and you know, different kingdoms and political intrigue and religious development, and you know, there's so much to it. It's like the like I said, I just would get lost in it and be, you know, because that's why I was thinking when you said about, you know, if somebody has the lack of attention, they want just, you know, an anthology and short stories, and they are good. So there are some very short stories, some short stories that I love that are really good. And one of them, actually, believe it or not, it was Stephen King, called The Body, I think it's called. And which was what was the basis for the movie. Was it Stand By Me? I think it was. That was the name of the movie that came from that. Yeah. And it was basically just a short story, but it was great. However, like I said, I personally, when I did a lot of reading, and I really wish I had more time to do a lot of reading, is I would get lost in a book, a whole series of books. If they had a series of them, it's like, oh, this is a great one. And I knew that I would, you know, finish the 400, 600, 800 page book. And I knew that there would be another one right after that. And I would, you know, and then read the next one and then get lost into that one. And, you know, and after the end of the series, it's almost like when you're watching a series on television and you come to the end, it's like, oh, okay, now what?
It's always a bit of a bittersweet ending when you're reading a series of books, because you're just like, oh, that ended so nicely, usually anyway, right? And then now what? Now what do I do? It's like you're in this like afterglow for like several days, right? Of just
right.
Oh.
And that's why I'm saying I really feel that, because a lot of times students say they don't really like reading, it's like I feel that they have lost out on this potential pleasure moments of, you know, just again getting lost. I've also been told that when one reads, you actually use your imagination so much more than watching a movie of the same thing.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
You're
Because if
world building in your entire brain.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, it's everything. It's a lot of
exactly.
work.
So if you're watching a video of this movie, you're just sitting there and it's being fed to you, and
Mhm.
it is entertaining. I mean, I won't deny that. I actually do like watching movies.
Yeah.
But when you're reading it, you are using your imagination. You're developing the story. You're
Mhm.
creating in your own imagination the mystic fog rolling in slowly, and the getting the actual you build this whole world around you. If the author is good and communicates well, you get lost in it. At least I know that I do, and I really wish that more students could I don't know, appreciate that,
Right.
and then could also see the value of what they could do and the power of their actual writing potential and skill
Yeah,
by looking at that as
sure.
examples, you know.
Mhm.
So
Right.
Definitely.
anyway, okay, very good. Well, now before we end off here, would either one of you guys like to say anything else in regard to English writing, anything like that? Christina, or have we covered everything?
I didn't really think whether or not there was anything else I'd like to add. Except for maybe most professors. I mean, and this is something that I can at least attest to for like community college instructors. The majority of us, if not like, I'd say probably like honestly, like 95% of us really genuinely do care and want you to succeed.
Yeah.
There's some that they're just not approachable or they're grumpy or something, but like most of us, like we want our students to succeed. We want our students to finish our class and then be able to move on to the next one to further their education, right? And so what I want to just say is like I want to encourage students to communicate with their instructors no matter what grade level you're at. Honestly, let them know what your challenges are, show them that you care and that you're trying and you're putting forth effort. I think that if nothing else, it builds rapport with you and your instructor.
Very good, very good. Joseph, would you like to add anything further?
I mean, I definitely second that. Yeah, I mean, we're here to help, and sometimes all it takes is one great teacher to really just kind of change someone's track. Like students who maybe are not very motivated in school or don't like school, don't like reading, don't like math, whatever it might be. Sometimes all it takes is just that one teacher who is very motivated, who wants their students to succeed more than anything. And like Christina's saying, don't hesitate to tell your instructor or teacher issues you're having or things you're struggling with or problems you're having understanding the material, because most of the time maybe not every single time, but most of the time, maybe 9 times out of 10 or so, we do want to help. We do want to see our students succeed, and sometimes it's great to see that students are invested. It always makes us feel good as well to know that students actually care, right?
Right.
About the
Yes.
material and stuff. So
Yeah. Well, and
Well,
that's a
very good.
really good point too, because like I've even had students who have told me years later that I made such a huge impact on them, and it wasn't even necessarily because like I helped them learn something in class about classroom material, but it was just my approach, my
yeah.
passion, my dedication, my willingness to help them. And it, made like some of them, a couple of them, I know they've like completely switched majors because of me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Didn't know I
Nice.
had so much power. But with
That's
others,
always
they
great,
just
though.
they make the point to come back and express their appreciation just for having someone in their corner in
Mhm.
during their educational journey. I think that makes all the difference. So worst thing, worst case scenario, you try to connect with an instructor and it doesn't work. You just try with another one. So
Right, exactly.
yeah.
So good. And as we've been talking, we've had that little banner going across, sponsored by Success Tutoring Online,
Yeah.
and wanted to remind everybody that both Christina and Joseph will be available as tutoring for writing, English, writing development, etc. As tutors, working with students one on one
Mhm.
now, and also during the summer, because a lot of times I think the summer is a perfect time to actually
Yeah.
address any area of weakness.
Mhm.
If somebody needs to work on their writing, this
Yeah,
is an area a
definitely.
time to do it. Would you
Right.
both agree?
Oh,
It
yeah.
can be your sole focus instead of worrying about keeping up on all your other assignments. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So good. Well, okay, this has been a very informative show today, and I want to thank you both for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to share your thoughts with us in regard to English, grammar, and the value of developing one's writing skills.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I was glad to
very
be here.
good.
Good conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of our listeners and all of those watching on YouTube for joining us today. I hope that you have found the show to be valuable and informative. If you like today's show and you haven't already, please subscribe so as not to miss any of our upcoming scheduled interviews. One of my next upcoming guests is a gentleman that is the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships at McGraw-Hill. Which is one of the largest educational publishers in the country. They have published many math books, and he is going to talk about a new math assessment and placement test that is being used by colleges and universities that is replacing the SAT and ACT. One of the things we'll be talking about is how parents can possibly save many thousands of dollars in college tuition by taking this test before going to college. And so I have, and I've mentioned in other guests several times about a nationally recognized award-winning visual artist coming on as a guest. We're still working out the details of when he can come on, but you won't want to miss that, especially if you have kids that are interested in pursuing art as a career. So, and we also have others in the lineup. So make sure that you subscribe, and we'll see you all next week. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Armando.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
As mentioned at the beginning of the show, Learning with Success is sponsored by Success Tutoring Online. Our administrative offices are located in Burbank, California, but we provide tutoring to students throughout the United States. If you would like to work with either Christina or Joseph to develop your writing skills, or would like to schedule tutoring with any of our other tutors to address a particular academic subject, please call our main office at 818-557-7379 or email at info@success-tutoring.com. Thank you.